Gold and Black Live for the new year, and welcome to the show. I'm not going to do this by myself. I've got Billy Keller on the line here, and I want to thank our sponsors here as we start 2019, 10 days in, or I guess it's 11 days in actually, but who's counting? State Farm agent Trent Johnson. I want to thank Trent and Diane and the good folks at State Farm for all they do for us. John Basham and Basham Reynolds already taking reservations for 2019-20. Hilton Garden Inn, and when tomorrow's a big day, State HGI tonight, and of course Triple X on the hill but on the level, a Purdue tradition since 1929, and they're busy packing them in at Triple X even with the State Street project in full swing. All right, Bill Keller, Billy, you there with me?
I am. I appreciate you having me on. And when you talked about the Triple X, that brought back a lot of memories for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you?
I was a beta and lived right down the street.
I was going to say you live right down the street, and they ought to. We'll have to talk to Greg and Terry about getting something named after you as well. But it has evolved over the years certainly, and still a great place to come to. But Billy, first, give us some good weather down there. Is it? You're in Florida, I assume, and I assume all is well down there.
I am. Right now we have about 65 degrees here in St. Pete, and it's a beautiful day. Sun is out. Very few clouds, just a little bit chillier than normal. Last week, little vacation week for my daughter that came down. She was in the mid to high 70s, and she was really in heaven when she was down here.
Well, and those of us in Indiana expecting maybe our first significant snow of the year. Tomorrow, 4 to 7 inches they're talking about. We're actually under a winter storm warning. We're going to be worse, I think, down in that I-70 corridor between Indianapolis and St. Louis. So that's basketball weather, and we're going to hit that topic first and foremost. Of course, Billy, a point guard and in the Purdue Hall of Fame. ABA veteran, but point guard on that Purdue basketball team that went to the Final Four in 1968-69. And we have some pictures of you. And I have that picture right now showing of Denny Brady on the far side, Rick Mount, and Billy Keller, the three Mr. Basketballs that had to have been your sophomore year, Rick's freshman year, and Denny's would have been his junior year. But tell me about what that was like to play, not only win Mr. Basketball, what that still means, but also to have three on the same team at the same time as you did back in the 60s at Purdue.
Well, it was exciting for me, no question. When I was, I believe I was a senior in high school. No, I take it back. I was a junior in high school, and Denny Brady, Lafayette Jeff Broncos won the state finals. And he was kind of my hero when I saw them play in the state finals. I was one of the letter winners that held the ropes for the state finals around the floor, and I had a chance to watch Denny up close. And then I played baseball for Washington High School. Of course, Denny was an excellent baseball player, and I saw him playing in some summertime baseball down in Indianapolis at Riverside Park.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I really had an opportunity to talk with him. But it was a thrill to be involved with those two guys. Of course, Rick being the great shooter that he was, and having the opportunity to play with him just provides such great memories and a lot of fun. And I still have the opportunity to play some golf with Denny on occasion in the summertime. So good people, great players, good people, and we had a lot of fun together and great memories.
Yeah, you grew up, and the story's been told some, but grew up, I know Bob King, who recruited you and to Purdue, the longtime assistant coach and administrator, liked you because you were a pretty salty baseball player growing up as well. Did you play all the way through high school as well? I mean, how many sports did you play at Washington?
Well, I played basketball, I played baseball, and I ran cross country. I thought about playing football, but my brother had hurt his knee, and he really didn't want me to play, and so I really felt like I don't want to get hurt, which would cause me some problems with basketball and baseball. So I ran cross country, and I'm glad that I did, because I think that really helped me to get myself prepared, physically, cardio, and getting ready for basketball. Even though it's a little different cardio than basketball, it was still, as far as getting out there and running, really helps you with your mental capacity and pushing yourself. And I translate that a lot into to playing basketball.
Yeah, you had that chance to also as a catcher in baseball to be in that game. Which did you love most growing up? I mean, what was your? I mean, was basketball always your thing, or you hear a lot of basketball guys talk about how they had that absolute love for baseball. Did you have that as much, or was basketball always your first love growing up?
Well, I think basketball really was my first love, to be honest with you, because when basketball season was going on, that was my focus. When it was baseball season, I'd play baseball, go home, do some homework, and then out the door going to play some basketball.
Yeah.
And the same way with cross country. You know, I love playing the game of basketball. I love playing with older players because older players made me work harder, taught me a lot of things as I would watch them and then play against them. So I think I benefited a great deal by playing basketball all year round, but I think it was a good break to run cross country and also to play baseball because it did give me kind of a break from basketball. But the summertime was filled with basketball, and I usually had to make myself take a week off late in the season with in the summer because I wanted to be ready, when basketball season rolled around, and that was really beneficial for me. But I loved them all, played them all, but basketball was my love.
You know, Indianapolis is. I look at this and says it has had a resurgence of great Division I talent, but it was that way back in the '60s. And there were some the classic pickup games, not only ones that you read about in Lebanon with Rick, but also obviously in the city of Indianapolis. So talk about some of the older guys that you may have played with that went on to play not only college but professional basketball. There were some great names in Indianapolis in the '60s that played in the Indianapolis area, I should say, that played basketball.
Yeah, no doubt. There were quite a few that played in the Indianapolis area, and one that comes to mind that I played against a lot when I was with the Pacers, and played against him in high school one time was Louis Dampier.
Yeah.
Louis Dampier played at Kentucky, played for the Kentucky Colonels after that. Great shooter, and really a wonderful person. He and I bucked heads so many times, but we became really good friends, even though maybe on the floor it didn't look like it. But outstanding player, George McGinnis also went to Washington High School.
Yeah.
Was probably one of the best players to ever come out of the city of Indianapolis, especially at the time. Steve Downing was awfully good. Both of those guys went in, and I think Steve played for the Celtics. Then George, of course, played for the Pacers, and then played for the 76ers when Julius was there with the Sixers. Wayne Pack was another one that played a little bit of pro basketball. Marvin Winkler, who also played a little basketball for the Pacers and also with Milwaukee. So there were a lot of players, and I'm probably leaving obviously some out. Indianapolis is a hotbed of basketball. Always has been and always will be. There's always that talent because I do believe there has always been excellent coaching in the Indianapolis area, and a lot of times guys don't get recognized for their abilities, but I think that really helps. And I know that Jerry Oliver, who was my high school coach, was an excellent high school coach. He also coached at Indiana for a year, I think, and then also he was Bobby Leonard's assistant for the Pacers for several years. So I was very fortunate to play with great players and be have the opportunity to be coached by great coaches.
Well, Indianapolis, Washington, the Continentals win the state championship in '65 with Billy Keller and a guy named Ralph Taylor. And of course, Purdue fans know that name not only as a player, but obviously on the Purdue radio network. But how good were McGinnis and Downing? Like when you were a senior in high school, they would have been in about in eighth grade. Could they have played varsity basketball? And maybe not as good a team as you had in '65, but were they ready to go pretty much as 7th and 8th graders, as you recall?
Well, I think with George, I think physically he was ready, but I'm not sure the discipline was there with his game.
Yeah.
But he grew into that discipline and became an absolute great college player for those 2 years, and then going into the pros. Let's see, who else was I thinking about?
Well,
also?
Steve Downing also in that would have been the same class with George, and of course they won the state championship in '69 at Washington.
Right.
But I just wondered were those guys at that level. I mean, just came into high school ready to go. You see or hear about those kind of guys now, especially that these boyhood legends that are starting in the Damon Baileys of the world, and to some extent the Romeo Langfords, guys like that are starting as freshmen in high school. Were they at that level?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, I really do. I believe both of those guys, when they got into college, they were ready.
Yeah.
There was no question about that. Steve Downing, a little story about him, and you've probably heard this before. But Steve Downing, when he was a freshman there at Washington, he was about 5'9".
Okay.
And when he left Washington 4 years later, he was 6'10". So those 4 years, you could just see him growing as he was walking down the hallway. But that's a great story. I wish that would have happened to me. I was only 5'5", I think, when I was a freshman, and I grew all the way up to about 5'9.5", 5'10". So, but those are some other guys too. Steve Alford, Damon Bailey. Both those guys were really excellent high school and college players. And you have a chance to reminisce a little bit about talking with you bring up a lot of names. You brought up Ralph Taylor. Ralph Taylor is such a quality guy.
Yeah.
I just can't say enough good things about Ralph. And of course the Purdue family know Ralph and what he did. I'll tell you, he was a great high school player. The guy could chew 2 full packs of gum all at one time.
Yeah.
And dunk the ball with 2 hands. I mean, he was an excellent player, and I always love to hear him on the radio doing some of the home games, and it's really fun to think about Ralph. And every time I watch the Boilers play on TV, I always see Ralph sitting there beside, I think.
Rob Blackman and Larry Clisby.
Clisby. Yeah, he's always there. It's always fun to see him.
Yeah, and Ralph, people forget, the Billy Kellers and the Rick Mounts and the Herman Gilliams were crowd favorites because they were on the court all the time. Ralph didn't play as much, but when he got in the game, he was really probably the first, and he played a lot more than Tommy Luce, but the first Tommy Luce, or first guy that was that guy a little bit deeper in the bench that the crowd just went nuts when he went in the game because he could jump out of the gym and do some things. He was a big fan favorite in college.
I do believe that, and he was. There was no question about it. He every time he would come in, the crowd would just go crazy, just like you had mentioned. But Ralph was a post player, and that's where they used him in high school. And when he got to college, George King moved him more to a guard, which was really not his position. I think had they left him at a small forward, of course they had Herman Gilliam there at that small forward spot, and then you had some other guys, Tyrone Bedford and George Faber coming in. You had guys that could play that position, but I think had Ralph been maybe moved more to his position, natural position, I think he would have played a lot more and contributed a lot more. But he worked hard every day. He was a good person on the court. He was an excellent student, and nothing but fond memories and good things to say about Ralph.
50 years ago, and really for you, having the chance to kind of represent your team. Last year, I think it was Northwestern game for the anniversary of the 68-69. Not only the team that opened Mackey Arena the year before, but the team that went to the Final Four the following year. A flood of memories. Tell me how good Herman Gilliam was. I mean, he's a guy that obviously had a long 10-year career in the NBA. Not forgotten, certainly, but he unfortunately passed away at a relatively young age, I think 57 years old. I talk about a fan favorite as well, but tell me, put him into perspective of a guy that you might see today in terms of how good a player Herman was.
Well, I'll tell you, Herman was the athleticism that they talk about today at about 6'1.5", 6'2". I've seen him dunk. I saw him dunk 2 basketballs at one time. I mean, this was a guy that could really do it all, Alan. He could shoot it. He could go after it. He could rebound. He could defend. He could handle the ball and pass it. I mean, there wasn't really anything that Herman couldn't do on the floor. He was fun to watch. He was exciting to watch. He'd come down the floor. I remember chasing chasing a player down the floor, maybe on a break, and they had a breakaway, and I'm the next one closest to the guy.
Yeah.
And numerous times I felt Herman's hand pulling on my shoulder because he was going to block the ball on the board.
Yeah.
I mean, so he was fast, he was quick, he could jump, and he was just an absolute wonderful person too. I mean, a beautiful smile. Never saw a person that he didn't like. He always had friends around him. You know, when he passed, it hit me in the heart because I just cared so much for him, and we were really close when we were in college, and just a great person. I loved to watch him play. I took him home one time to Indianapolis and took him over to Meadowwood Park one time, and you know, we were over there and we were dunking the basketball. Some of the little guys, you know, we thought we were big stuff, and Herman called for, he had a ball in his hand, and he called for my ball that I had in my hand, and I thought, well, what's wrong with the one you got? And he said, no. I said, I want to see that one. He went up and dunked both of them at the same time, and that ended the little guy dunking at that point. But,
I'll bet.
you know, he was a jokester. He was fun. He's just a guy that would represent. I just wish he was still living because he would be still a great representative for the Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, he was. All right, we got just a couple minutes left. I wanted you obviously are watching your beloved alma mater on television every chance you get. Knowing the Billy Keller I know, and you know the game. You know the game. You have the great. You are the only tie in Purdue history. Your accomplishments are great in basketball, but the tie to produce two Final Four teams. Of course, you were an assistant coach with Lee Rose in 1980 when the Boilermakers last went. But tell me what you think about, Carson Edwards is an interesting guy to watch, struggling a little bit, at least he did last game, shooting the basketball. But what do you see when you watch this team play in Matt Painter's squad?
Well, I think this is a team that's, basically they've lost all their inside game like Haas.
Yeah.
You know, you have to replace a guy like that. You basically have three guys that are trying to replace Haas. You know, you got Boudreau. Let's see, is it Boudreau?
Yeah, Evan Boudreau, huh?
Boudreau, yeah, Boudreau. You have Williams and you have Harms. All three of those guys, in their own right, are really good players, but they all need something the other one has. And I think what Matt is trying to do is he's trying to match up one of those players to whatever the opposition has in front of him. And I really felt like Williams played extremely well the other night, and he has to be the guy that plays against the Michigan States and the Michigans because he's the biggest, strongest, heaviest guy that's in the middle. But Boudreau has really done well. Harms has done well as well, but they don't really have the inside game that they have had. They have to rely a lot on that three-point play. And you know yourself, if you live and die by that three-point play. If it goes in, fine. If it doesn't, and I think this year teams are not having to give up the three so much like they did last year because we don't have Haas any longer.
Yeah.
When I look at the team also, I with Carson, I wanted to talk just a little bit about Carson.
Yeah.
You know, you got a guy like Carson who could hit you with 30 every night. You know, but he's also going to draw all the defensive players on the floor. In other words, he had the other night, he had two long defenders on him, at one time. There's one that was playing him, then another one would come in and play him. And then also he's being guarded by committee. Every time he drove the paint, you're looking at a guy like Ward that's in there. Yeah. Or you got, I think it was Tillman in there.
Yeah, two big guys.
Two big guys. And, when those guys are really keying in on you, you got big guards guarding him. You got people blocking the lane, no place for him to go. I think those are the kinds of games that he's going to face. He's going to face double teams. He's going to face people stopping him from getting to the bucket. But you know what? I think he could become a real good facilitator. The game the other night, I thought, this would be a good game for him to penetrate and dish and really rely on his teammates. His teammates can shoot it. I think we got to give them credit. If they can receive the pass from Carson going to the middle like they do really in the NBA, you see a lot of penetration and dish. Got a lot of guys that can shoot. So when he's having a bad game, I'd like to see him be more of a facilitator, but I think he'll grow into that. I think he's still learning the game and preparing himself for the next level.
Well, it's going to be interesting tonight, Friday night, Purdue, Friday night basketball, the Boilermakers in Wisconsin. And I want to take one memory from that year, because the Wisconsin game up there opened the Big Ten season for you guys and was an important game. Wins in Madison are really never easy, though Purdue went through a long period of winning a lot up there. But I don't know if you have memories of that game up at the old Wisconsin field. I think it was 86-80, the final. But a game that, you just come off the trip to Hawaii, first Big Ten game, and an important one as you guys went on that 13 out of 14 game win streak, won the Big Ten championship for the first time for Purdue in 29 years. But do you have any memories of that game up in Madison that you had to sneak through to get the job done?
Well, I don't remember the exact game, but I do know the place you're talking about is playing.
Yeah.
Really, really a tough place to play. Crowd is into it. Especially now, these guys, for the present teams, they're so deliberate. They play good defense like they did back then. They're hard-nosed. They're tough. They rebound. I mean, they really are very disciplined. And, I think that's what we faced. But, when you go into a hostile environment like that, you just have to stick with the game plan, continue to do what got you to where you were at that point, and that's what we tried to do. We had an exciting team, and we had a good all-round balanced team. Everybody played their role and did what they were supposed to do, and because of that, everybody benefited. We had a lot of success. I think we averaged 94, 97 points a game.
In the nation.
In the nation. Rick was a great shooter. Herman was a great player. Everybody just did their thing. And because of that, we all had the opportunity to be recognized and go on to the next level. Rick going on and playing in the ABA, myself in the ABA, Herman NBA. I think even George Faber had the opportunity with Denver at the time, but I think he decided that he didn't want to play. So when you look back on that team, we just had such a fun, exciting. We had guys that really bonded together, and nobody really cared, other than just winning. Yeah. And that's what I see really in the present Boilermaker team. I see guys that like each other. It seems to me that they share the ball. They don't have the parts yet. They don't have all the ingredients, and I think Matt will get that through recruiting. And they're a year or two away to getting back to where they were. But they're fun to watch. They're exciting. Sometimes I think they start playing a little bit too fast right now. Mm-hmm. They slow that offense down and make sure they get good shots. Sometimes quick shots or bad shots or turnovers create points at the other end for the opponents. And but they're competing. They look like they're having fun. This is probably an enjoyable year, even though they're not winning as many games. This is probably a good teaching, fun year for Matt Painter.
Yeah, coaches try to do. Well, Billy, thanks so much for your time. Bring some of that warm weather north, and we'll look forward to. I always look forward to the opportunity to talk to you as we get a chance sometimes offline, which I enjoy as well. And best to you and your family in the new year, and let's keep we'll be watching tonight as Purdue takes on Wisconsin. Have a good rest of the day, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, Alan. Hey, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Sounds good, Billy. All right, we're going to take a 2-minute break, bring in Andy Pogar from WLFI, and then Brian Newman will join us on the road to Madison show of the 2019 year on Golden Black Live. Stay tuned. We'll see you in a couple minutes.
If you